Do you have the gift of gab and like talking about interesting topics? Are you often called opinionated by your friends and family? Then come to Anchor where you can be all of the above and get paid for it. Along with being one of the easiest systems to create contact with, Anchor supplies everything you need and can be used from your smartphone or computer. They even distribute your content for you so that you can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and more. Just download the Anchor app or go to Anchor FM to get started. Hello, Internet family. This is Anjanette Potter, also known as Adam's Rib, and I am on post 9 of 29 Days of Black Feminism. So today's subject is going to be intersectionality. The short definition of intersectionality is the theory of multidimensional oppression. The long version definition is a theoretical framework for understanding how aspects of one's social and political identities, example, gender, race, class, sexuality, abilities, etc., might combine to create unique modes of discrimination. So discrimination is, the definition of discrimination is prejudicial treatment based on membership in a certain group. The most common form we talk about here in the States is racial and sexual discrimination based on one's gender or biological sex and on one's racial ethnicity. So intersectionality, the term intersectionality aims to broaden the agenda of first and second waves of feminism, which focus largely on experiences of a lot of white middle class women. Now, first wave feminism, there were black women, like I said, that was the suffrage movement, and there were a lot of black women involved, although there were white women who weren't from the South that I believe were not necessarily enthused at our involvement. When we get into second wave feminism, which is the 60s, we start to see that's where the iconic picture of Gloria Steinem with her fist raised standing next to the lady who I started off this series with, Dorothy Pittman Hughes, where they're standing there, and I put it on my video. They're standing next to each other, and then there's a more updated picture of them standing together. So second wave feminism was a little more inclusive of black women especially. So like I said before, as I talk about all of this, and I'm going to extend the whole feminist theme because we're coming on March, which I believe is Women's History Month. So I'm going to be doing 31 days of feminism, and I'm going to broaden that to include other ethnicities. This was dedicated to Black feminism because February is Black History Month. And so I wanted this to be, I am African American, and I wanted this month to be exclusively to Black women, and especially Black women who have fought for equal rights for us based on gender and racial ethnicity. So intersectionality is used to find combinations of injustices that are felt by members of society. My own experiences, I have dealt with discrimination based on race. I've also dealt with gender discrimination. With Black women, it becomes a little more complex because you're talking about dealing with discrimination, what they call misogyny or misogyny that is aimed specifically at Black women. You also have to deal with the whole issue that your racial ethnicity plays. Some days you may feel a need to be loyal to your ethnicity over top of your gender. And so you wind up feeling very overlooked. I can remember years ago, and this memory comes back to me, where there was this black woman who was pulled on the side of the road, and I think it was near the South. I hate that kind of mess. And I might have even been somewhere near Florida, but she was pulled over. And the deputy, I guess, was mad. She didn't realize she was being followed by him, first of all, because she wasn't breaking any laws. She was just minding her own business. So finally, I guess he finally got her over, and he was mad, at her for making him have to follow her that long. Like I said, she didn't realize, she's looking like, he can't possibly be following me because I'm not doing anything. So he got her out of the car, and he's yelling at her, and he makes her get down, face down on the side of the road. And so we're talking about very close to the intersection, where if all somebody would have had to do was beep over, and they'd have ran her over. But she talked about the fact that he treated her like a black bitch. Now, the problem that most black women run into, and I've run into this myself, is the whole issue of society not seeing us as feminine. And many times, you will get this from men, because they will be quicker to start an argument with you, like you're minding your own business, and they get mad because of what's going on in traffic. And yes, many times it may be white men, who think they have a right to just talk to you any old kind of way, say stuff to you that they would never say to a white woman, because they don't consider you as feminine. So, for me, intersectionality gets in there, because oftentimes, or we may be treated as being, or we may be more hypersexualized. And I did a post on the Jezebel spirit. I think it is on the AnjanetteSpeak blog. When I post this on YouTube, I'll find it and put the links there, about how we're not just hypersexualized, it's almost we're sexualized in a very animalistic fashion. So, that contributes to a whole lot of stuff, because if a person doesn't think of you as human, they don't think of you as having a right to have any personal boundaries that they would respect, which can contribute to you being sexually assaulted. I think women everywhere that believed, I was one of them who believed that Harvey Weinstein was guilty. Some of his victims were women of color. Is what a lot of people don't realize. He had a lot of women of color that he victimized or tried things with. And so when you have somebody who has that kind of power, intersectionality can kick in, because if they already are not respecting women who are their own ethnicity, which in this case would be white women, you're seen as less human once you start delving into women of color, and especially whatever they consider to be women of color. Because there's some gray frameworks there too. Obviously, if you look black, the blacker you look or the darker you are. So now we're talking colorism, which can be even one more dimension. So it gets pretty deep. So let me see here. So this aims to separate itself from white feminism by acknowledging that all women have different experiences and identities. Like I talked before about, your experiences are going to be different depending on your ethnicity and depending on if you add colorism to it. And I will be talking about colorism in March. And, I will be talking about colorism, especially when you start talking about women and colorism, because we're affected a whole lot different than what men are. And, you have a lot of people who don't want, colorism isn't a thing. Colorism is a thing. Colorism is a thing. If you, all you have to do is a quick Google search, and you can find all types of articles and different things, studies that have been done about bias when it comes to being hired, when it comes to being followed around a store, even getting a taxi cab in some areas can be a problem when you start talking about the darker you are if you're a person of color, or if you're a recognizable person of color. So it is a thing. Don't let anybody, fool you. Now, what can you do to combat it? I'll be talking about that. What can you do as far as you're concerned, as far as colorism goes? Because, I've told people, I have never, that I know of, not got hired or had a lack of success due to colorism. And I say not that I know of, because I've always done my level best to try to do my level best, so that I could combat racism and colorism, or kind of eliminate it from my life. Now, let me say this much. Doing your level best, or, working your butt off, or being a person of excellence, can reduce the likelihood of you being a victim of racism or colorism. It cannot eliminate it. And the reason why I say it cannot eliminate it, because when you're talking about issues of racial bias and sexual bias, you're talking about the condition of someone's heart. And it is very hard for you to reach up inside somebody's chest and turn their heart. That's a job for God. And most people who have those types of biases are not going to come right out and say, oh yeah, by the way, I prefer light-skinned women and don't really want to fool with dark-skinned women and different other stuff like that. Even men your own color are not comfortable sharing their preferences. So it's something to think about. So we also going to talk about the qualitative analytic framework, a detailed sketch outline of some social phenomena representing the initial idea of scientific analyzing phenomena that identifies interlocking systems of power that affect those that are most marginalized in society. So when you're talking about marginalization, I like to include a lot of definitions because people may not know. Everyone doesn't self-educate, and not to call anybody stupid, but I like to have my readers or listeners informed and know what exactly I'm talking about. And some people are like me, you may have the equivalent of a PhD and you may not have ever gone to college. You know what I'm saying? You're just an avid reader. You like looking things up. You like knowing what stuff is. You like, researching different phenomena. You like looking into it. You like reading about it and knowing if there's anything to it. So marginalization is basically social exclusion. And it's a form of social disadvantage and regulation to the fringe of society. So you're marginalized. You're pretty much like an outcast. Okay. This is a term coined by Now, the term intersectionality was coined by Black feminist Kimberly Williams Crenshaw, who I will be including in this last week here, if I can. If not, we're going to take some of this over into March. So Kimberly Williams Crenshaw actually is from Canton. So she coined this term in 1989. This focuses on the various forms of social stratification. Now, social stratification is is the categorization of people into groups. So intersectionality would focus on the various forms of social stratification or categorization of people into groups, such as class, race, sexual orientation, age, religion, creed, ability, and gender. Included in the consideration of intersectional feminism and its social and cultural effects. The purpose as a theory is to identify how overlapping categories of identity impact individuals and institutions. These relationships must be taken into account when working to promote social and political equality. This ensures that feminism not only considers gender, but also combinations of diverse types of oppression. This theory began as an exploration of the oppression of women of color, especially black women, within society. The analysis has expanded to include more aspects of social identity. Okay, so if you want to know more, this I found, like I said before, most of my information is going to be courtesy of Wikipedia. So if you want to know more about it, you can just go to Wikipedia and type in intersectionality, and you'll see more there. So, like I said before, the rest of this week, I'm going to try to include more black feminists like Anna Julia Cooper, Kimberly Williams Crenshaw. I'm going to try to hurry up and get her up there this week since she's from my neck of the woods, Stark County. Charlotte Fortin Grimke, Maya Angelou, and Audre Lorde, if I can get them up. And like I said, I'm not trying to be too hard on myself. My next post is going to be on black feminism itself. And after that, I'm going to talk about womanism. Like I said, that may extend over into March. So that way, you're getting the whole thing. One of the reasons I want to go ahead and continue on into March is because there are also different waves of feminism. I found a lot of I wanted to expand at least a little bit more on the different waves of feminism. I gave a little bit of an introduction to the 4 waves of feminism and the time periods that they took place. So now each wave is going to get its own post in March, so I can include the different types of women's movements that have taken place globally. Because believe it or not, feminism is not just something, and women's rights is not just something that took place in the United States. Believe it or not, globally, during the time that we were having first, second, third, and fourth wave feminism, there were movements going on around the globe, such as India, Africa, especially with African Americans, Africa, Jamaica, different other places. I've been following a feminist in Kenya page on Facebook, and it's been pretty interesting because different societies have different marginalization for women, especially women of color, and they experience different issues, especially when you talk about colonialism. And you know that colonialism is the settling of white settlers into indigenous areas. So, and I will be talking about that as well. So anyway, this week I have to do my book review on Valerie Nefora's, let me see, what is the name of that book? I will give it to you tomorrow, definitely. But I will be reviewing that book this week on Bookworm. I also Eclectic Weekends is going to be up and running this Friday night. I am going to do Black Women in Gospel. So you'll be getting some history there. Anyway, you guys this is, Tuesday evening going in about 11:30 at night. So we're going into Wednesday, Hump Day, which I will be doing my live tomorrow to give you a little more detail on Friday night's broadcast. So you guys be blessed. Enjoy the rest of your week. And I love you very much. Bye-bye. Hello, you have reached the message line for Adams Rib Media Ministry. If you would like to give me a shout out, recommend some topics for discussion, or give an opinion about some topics that I've already discussed, either here on my podcast or on my blogs, leave me a message and I will get right back to you. Have a blessed day. Bye-bye.